Hey guys, it's Jail Phoenix, and today I'm drawing the leader of the Patch Puppets, Noir. Noir, much like the other Patch Puppets, was created by Elgia. However, unlike the rest of his fellow Patch Puppets, he's the only one who's black opposed to being any other color. As Patch Puppets are more commonly colors like red, blue, purple, green, he's the more unique one. On top of that, he doesn't have any of the unique type of patterns that each of the Patch Puppets have on his ears. Instead, he has 3 stripes on his ears, 2 of them being gold and the middle one being red. The same goes for his arms as well. The other things that separates him from the other Patch Puppets as well is the fact that out of the rest, he actually speaks more regally and has a much more commanding kind of presence and speaks in a much more poetic sense compared to the rest of the Patch Puppets. Now, I don't think I mentioned this in the Patch Puppets video, but the rest of them, they tend to rhyme when they speak. But for Noir, he doesn't do that. He's also the first Patch Puppet that Elgia ever created, and many of the people in the theater, for those who've been there the longest, have also mentioned that there was a time when he didn't have a name, and he was the only Patch Puppet at the time, so when eventually other Patch Puppets started coming around, eventually he was given a name. Alright, so now on to discussing the actual creation process of Noir. So when I first came up with the idea for Noir, it was kind of like on a whim, almost. So I was just sort of sketching out like, oh, I want to kind of design a Patch Puppet, but like make it look a little different than the rest of them. And I decided to give it like a little I decided to change up the little neck accessory, because most times they have like the little frilly thing. I forget what it's actually called. And instead I was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give it like a little collar and that little, I forget what that little tie thing is. I said it in my last video when I was talking about Emil's outfit, but it'll come to me later. Regardless, I added that, and then I added like a little jewel and everything on there. And I also decided too that he was going to be a lot taller than the normal Patch Puppets. So I kind of incorporated that into his design too. You probably can't notice because like I don't have him standing beside other Patch Puppets, but that's just one thing I was like, oh yeah, that's one of the things I want to add to him to make him look different for the other Patch Puppets. Because the whole thing was for me to just kind of like mess around with the design and see if I could like create something else, you know what I'm saying? But I had decided like, oh yeah, I want to do like, I wanted to use colors I'm not going to normally use for the other Patch Puppets. So essentially for Noir, he kind of sort of breaks the rules of how Patch Puppets generally look. But then again, he is the first, so technically he kind of is the rule. Yeah, as I was kind of sketching him out and everything, I didn't exactly have a story right away for who he was and what he would do. I actually kind of sort of came up with the story the more I started adding certain details to the character and everything, especially since the main thing that I changed first before I added any sort of like patterns and stuff to him was the neck accessory, which is what I mentioned earlier. I was like, yeah, I just wanted to do something else. So you'll probably notice that the way how I'm drawing Noir is very similar to how I drew Wolfgang for his little illustration that I did at the end of his design video. And I wanted to do the same thing for Noir. In fact, I actually plan to do the same thing for all the rest of the Chaos Troupe characters, but I'll get to them as I go out and design each and every one of them and eventually, you know, get to a more satisfying design for each of them and whatnot. Bye!